Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show, and welcome back to our Victorian parlor. It's February, so it's time for the next installment in our 2018 calendar blanket, the Victorian Stitch Sampler. And this month, in honor of St. Valentine's Day, we will be learning the aptly named Primrose stitch. This pretty little stitch is much denser and therefore warmer than the pattern we learned back in January. As a result, this stitch pattern would stand very well on its own in its own little blanket. If you were interested in working this particular pattern on its own, it can be worked over a foundation chain row that's any multiple of 3 plus 2 extra chains on the end for turning. But for the purpose of this project, we will be building it directly onto the blanket that we already have in progress. You'll also notice that I've included a white divider row in between January and February stitches. I'll be including the same divider row in the same cream color in between each month's pattern stitch all the way through the year. You can change colors like I am, or you can work your entire blanket in the same color. I'll make sure that the instructions are given for both choices at the beginning of each row. The divider row does two things. It provides a nice visual break between pattern stitches, and it also makes sure that we're back at the right stitch count to begin the next pattern stitch installment. Make sure you're using the same weighted yarn as you did for the previous month. So if you're changing colors like me, that's fine. Just make sure all of your yarn is the same weight. And for the duration of this entire project, make sure you're using the same hook too. If you're new to our channel or this particular blanket project, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and you've clicked the little bell notification button, because that will ensure that you get a notification every time we release a new video and you won't miss any in this calendar blanket series. If you'd like a written copy of this stitch guide, then you'll find one at our Etsy shop, and you can pop over to our Etsy shop. The link will be in the description box down below, and you can purchase one there. And thank you to everyone who has made a purchase at our Etsy shop. You help support our show, and that goes a long way to helping us keep this show running and bringing you new videos every week. That said, let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, head on over to the craft table, and we will begin stitching up the February Primrose stitch together. To work the Primrose stitch, I'm going to be using about 100 grams of this soft green color today for my primrose stripe. I'm also going to be putting a little divider row in between all of my stitch patterns, and you don't need very much if you're going to change colors and do that along with me. Just a small amount to work a single row in the divider stitch. You're going to need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and the same hook we used last month, which is a 5.5 millimeter or an I9. Have your blanket handy, and let's get started. First, we're going to add that divider row of a nice plain stitch so that all of our stitch patterns stand out a little bit. If you didn't change colors, that's fine. Just chain 3 and wait. For those of us who are changing colors, you want to make a slip knot in your divider row color. Pick up your blanket. You're going to join your yarn with a slip stitch right where you fastened off. Chain 3, and this chain 3 counts as a double crochet. For those of you not changing color, make sure you're chained 3 and you've turned, and we're now ready to work across our blanket. Into this first big space, we're going to work 2 double crochets. Try not to make your stitches very tight. Nice, easy-going double crochets. You can work over your short tail, or you can wait until the end and you can weave it in afterwards, whatever's easiest for you. Into every single big space across, so these are the chain 3 spaces from the previous row, you're going to work 3 double crochets. So 3 double crochet into each of those big spaces all the way across, and when you get to the last space, pause and I'll catch up with you there. Once you've worked 3 double crochet into every single big chain 3 space all the way across and you've got to the last space, we're going to work 2 double crochet into it. and then count up 2 chains from the turning chain of the row before, and you're going to find the third and you're going to double crochet into that. You should have 120 stitches all the way across your blanket for that nice little divider row, and that includes the chain 3 that we began the row with. If you're changing color like I am, go ahead and fasten off. So snip your yarn, fasten off, weave in your tails, and if you are not changing color, do not fasten off. Simply chain 2, turn your work, and wait until I join my yarn. To change colors, make a slip knot in your next color. This is the color I'm doing the Primrose stitch pattern with. Pick up your blanket, join with a slip stitch to the top of that double crochet that you fastened off. That'll be the last stitch you made on your divider row. And once again, if you're not changing colors, just sort of bear with me. Chain 2. So everyone should now be at the same place. We're working back across our blanket. We have chained 2 whether we changed our color or not. And here we go. Into this very next stitch, so the one right next to the one we just worked into, we are going to work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, all into the same stitch. Now I'm working over top of my short tail. You don't have to. You can wait until the end and weave it in later if you like. We're going to skip 2 stitches, find the third, and work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into it. So single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, all into the same stitch. Skip 2 stitches, find the third. So if you're looking across the top of your blanket, it looks like this. Skip, skip, there's the third, and into that same stitch work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, all into the same stitch. And that's all you have to do all the way across for the first row of this pattern. Skip 2 stitches, find the third, work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into it. Work all the way across to just about the end, and I'll catch up with you there. Once you're all the way to the end and you're looking at the last 3 stitches, so those 2 double crochet and the 3 chains are our turning chain from the previous row, you're going to skip 2 stitches, work a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into that last real double crochet, and then into the top of the turning chain. So find the top of that turning chain. You're just going to work a half double crochet. So half double crochet into the top of that chain 3, which counts as a double crochet from the previous row, and that is it. You should have something that looks like this. At the end of our first row, or the establishing row of this pattern, you should have 40 of these cute little buds. So you can look at it like this little bud is what sits in top on, or I should say in the middle of that 3 double crochet shell from the previous row. So those little, you can count the little bumps, you should have 40 of them. And they're hedged by a chain 2 and a half double crochet on both ends of the blanket. So that's the end of row 1. For row 2, we're going to chain 3, turn our work, and into the first chain 2 space, which is the little bump in our little bud here. You find that chain 2 space. You're going to work 3 double crochets into it. So nice old shell, 3 double crochets. Find the next chain 2 space, which is that little bump in the bud, and work 3 double crochets into it. And that's all you have to do for row 2. Work 3 double crochets, or what we often refer to as a shell, into the chain 2 space, or the very middle. So if you're looking at your blanket, find the little bump, the little bud, find the middle of it, it's a chain 2 space, and work 3 double crochets into it. Work that all the way across, and I will catch up with you at the end. Once you've worked 3 double crochets into the little chain 2 space, so that's the top of, or the middle of every one of those little buds all the way across from the previous row, when you get to the end, work 3 double crochet into the last little bud, find the top of the chain 2 that was your turning chain and work a double crochet into it. And you should have 40 shells all the way across, so a 3 double crochet shell, 40 of those, and a double crochet and chain 3 on each end. So double crochet on one end, chain 3 on the other. The chain 3 counts as a double crochet. That's it for row 2 and the even row. Let's move on to row 3, which is the odd row. We're going to chain 2, turn our work, and we're going to look at the first shell we made. So there's the 3 stitches of the shell, 1, 2, 3. Into that middle stitch, you're going to work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. And just like the first row, or the pattern establishing row, you're going to skip 2 stitches, find the third, and work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, all into the same stitch. If you're eyeballing, look at your shell, find the middle stitch, and work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet. So you can either count if you're unsure by looking at the top of your stitches and counting over 2, finding the third, and working single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into it. Or you can just eyeball it by grabbing the middle stitch of all of your shells, there it is, and that's it, all the way across. Single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the middle stitch of every one of those shells, or skip 2 stitches, find the third, and work single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, all the way across, and I'll catch up with you at the end. Once you've worked single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the middle of every one of those shells all the way across, find the middle of your last shell, or skip 2 stitches and find the third, and work that last single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into it. And then into the top of the turning chain, you're going to work a half double crochet. So count up 3 stitches, find the top of your turning chain, and half double crochet. And that's it for the odd row, or row 3. So for the rest of this pattern, you're just going to repeat row 2 and row 3, or even odd, even odd. And because we want a section of blanket that's approximately the same size as our previous section, so for me this section of blue is 10 centimeters or 4 inches tall. I want the same amount of striped pattern up here. So I will be repeating my stitch pattern at least 3 more times. So even odd, even odd, even odd. So I have another 6 rows to complete, and I should be up to approximately 10 centimeters or 4 inches in height. So that's what you want. You want it to basically mirror the height of your previous pattern stitch. And if you're using a different size yarn or a hook, or your stitch tension is obviously going to be different than mine, then just work that pattern's repeat until it's somewhere near what you've got down here. And that's all you need to do. We chain 3 to turn, to go back into an even row, find the middle of the first little bud, so that chain 2 space, and work 3 double crochet into every single one of those chain 2 spaces, or the little buds that we made. When you get to the end of that row, chain 2, turn, and work a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet into the middle of every shell. You can always zip back and check out the previous 2 rows if you need help. Otherwise, go ahead and repeat pattern rows 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3, and I'll catch up with you in a few rows. I have completed 3 repeats of that 2, 3, 2, 3 pattern, so I have 9 rows of the primrose pattern stitch in total. So my new stripe of pattern is approximately 10 centimeters or 4 inches tall, and you can continue to work the rows 2, 3, 2, 3 if you need it to be a little taller, or you want it to be a little taller, but you want to end on an odd row, or this, what I consider the little rosebud row. So it's the odd row, or the row 3. So make sure you end on that. If you are changing color like I am in preparation for next month's stitch, you can snip your yarn and fasten off. If you're not changing color, don't bother fastening off, And you can tune in next month for the next stripe. If you have little ends, make a moment or take a moment to just grab your yarn needle and weave them in. And that's the February installment of the 2018 calendar blanket, or the Primrose stitch. A couple of notes. If you find that the edge of your blanket is moving a little or isn't completely straight over the course of this blanket build, don't worry about it. All of the pattern stitches are different and they're all going to act a little differently. But once we get to the end of the blanket, we put on our border and we give it a nice blocking, all of that rippling will disappear. So no worries about that. Also, if your stripes are all slightly different sizes, so for example, if one stripe is 4 inches and you really want to match up the other one, but it's just a little bit over 4 inches, don't worry about it. Believe me, this blanket is going to look really, really pretty when it's all done. And the different sizing of the stripes will actually play nicely into the overall design of the blanket. And that's it for this week, everyone. I hope you had fun making this along with us, and we will see you here soon on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.